that's what we will be talking about. Before we jump into the presentation, a bit of housekeeping, safe harbor statement, which basically highlights is that Oracle holds the right to change the direction of the product or any of the future developments that we are doing. Not only that, you as a customer should be able to do your due diligence before making the decision on this particular product. So let me start with a quick quote from Sherlock Holmes. Where Sherlock Holmes has clearly highlighted that it is hard to make intelligent decisions when you only have partial facts, right? I have seen this number of times, nearly 20 years of my career. The organization like yours or a lot of other organizations out there as well, they do struggle to, get all the facts in one place. So, hence there's a significant amount of delay in for them to be able to make any decisions which goes in favor of the organization. I was talking to a customer in Australia. This is 4 months ago. They had issues where they have assets that they manage, 300 to $400 million worth of assets that they manage, right? And to calculate net asset value, it was taking 6 to 8 weeks, right? So every time they would want to make a decision, they would need net asset value information, but the data always was 6 to 8 weeks old, so they were not in the right position to make those decisions. Not only that, the finance team was running about 60 spreadsheets per month to be able to calculate the net asset value. And if there's one error in that spreadsheet, the number of spreadsheets would double. So, one error, the spreadsheets would be 120. Two errors, they're looking at 180 spreadsheets to be able to get to that value. And we see that all the time. I talk to organizations from time to time, and this is a common problem that hey, our data is sitting in multiple siloed systems. Our data is not consolidated. Not only that, to get the actuals from various different systems and to consolidate it, it takes about 4 to 6 weeks for us to be able to, look at the true picture. But then the challenge it becomes for senior management is that the data is, 6 to 8 weeks old, if not, much older. Then they're not in the position to make those informative decisions where the companies they can lead the companies and be agile on with the ever-changing requirements that are the demands that are coming out of this world at the moment. So, driving operational excellence within, with driving management excellence with the operational excellence within your organization. Every organization has gone through, where they have invested significant amount of money in automating various different operational processes. Having an ERP is no longer doesn't give you kind of the upper edge, because you will find that having an ERP is pretty common these days with any and every organization. Majority of the organizations have ERPs where they've automated, all of their manufacturing or, operational processes within the organization. Not only that, organizations have spent enormous amount of time on their HR systems as well, right? Keeping employee data, managing all the, kind of employee related stuff in a HR system, again, doesn't give you the edge. Now, the question is how does management get access to, to be able to, get the insights across the organization, have that agility and the alignment within the organization, where every department within the organization is kind of on the same page, right? So every organization, every product owner, department head, whether they're operating in multiple geographies or, operating in multiple currencies or, running different P&Ls. It's how do they all get to one common goal where, senior management gets visibility into what's happening into their business and how they can now take that forward. And driving that agility by having that knowledge up their sleeves where they are nimble enough, they are agile enough to be able to make those decisions on the go. And this is where NetSuite planning and budgeting kind of comes in, right? As we've spoken about. um, this is a tool which allows organizations to be able to drive that management excellence, within various different subsidiaries, departments, multiple locations, or wherever they're operating on. The tool has a enormous amount of history where the tool has been operating for last about 30 odd years. Some of you might recall the tool, which was known as Hyperion. Right, Hyperion was rebranded as Enterprise Performance Management, and then within the NetSuite space, it was rebranded as NetSuite Planning and Budgeting Cloud Services as well. So the underlying technology is still the S-based technology. The tool has won enormous awards, has been in the Gartner's Leaders Quadrant for last about 2 decades. So there is no competition as such for the tool, into the into the real world, because the tool obviously has a lot of capabilities, and now being available within the NetSuite umbrella, you're pretty much looking at an enterprise grade solution, available to all of the mid markets at a pretty affordable cost. So just a high level overview of what the tool does. It is a complete planning, budgeting, reporting, and a forecasting solution. It has so much, capabilities. As I mentioned, the tool has been operating for the last about 30 years. You won't find anything in the tool which which will not be out of the box. Pretty much everything, all your forecast methods, all your management reports, all your variance reporting, all your demand planning, inventory planning kind of methods are, coming outside of the box within the tool. There is so much intellectual property that we built over the tool. There's so many templates that we built over the tool. Pretty much everything is available, so customers can get online fairly quickly. They have the ability to recognize the investment fairly quickly, and the total cost of ownership becomes low because, hey, majority of the things are coming out of the box, so there's no need to configure or build anything. So it does have the approval, prediction, and reporting framework as well. Obviously, as we know, a lot of these things, management reporting, budgets, and so on and so forth, they need to go through the approval flow on the back end. So we do have a workflow where senior management holds a right pretty much to approve or decline anything, right? Not only that, the predictive analytics is something which is big these days, where companies are coming out and they want us to basically provide them with information based on the historical data on how they've been performing. So the tool leverages all the smarts that are built into the tool, and finance department gets the opportunity to basically take actions on that data, on what the tool is telling them, rather than kind of crunching and basically crunching and consolidating numbers. The other best factor, and let's face it, finance people love Excel. We cannot take away Excel from a lot of the finance people and a lot of the normal people as well. Excel is a pretty good tool. The beauty about the tool is that you have the ability to use the tool both on over the web or even in an office environment, which is Microsoft Excel. So you will still be creating your budgets, creating your management reports, doing everything in Excel, but you are talking to the underlying database that is allocated to you guys. And as you're putting in the numbers, the data is getting consolidated at a department, group, subsidiary level as well. right? So when management goes in and logs into the tool, they always have the latest and greatest insights of how the data, how the company is performing, and how the consolidation is going within the organization. Other beauty about the tool is the embedded data management module, which allows us to take data not only from NetSuite, but from any other source system, right? So a lot of the companies, they come to us, across Asia, and they say, "Oh, yes, we're using our, NetSuite as a financials, but we need to pull data out of this BI tool, or we need to get data out of a CRM tool, or we need payroll specific data that we need to bring into the tool to do workforce planning, right?" So the tool is ERP agnostic, right? So even if you're not using NetSuite, you have the ability to basically, we have the ability to pull data out of any of the source system that you nominate. Right? And even with other CRMs or BI tools, we have the ability to, with the data management capabilities, we have the ability to take the data in, so you get the latest and greatest in one tool. Obviously, with NetSuite, customers who are using NetSuite, there are pre-packaged adapters that are available, which basically automates the load of data from NetSuite into the tool via the save searches, right? So you don't actually have to, manually download or upload any of the data. It's all done for you guys. The tool has been trusted by Fortune 500 companies, and within the NetSuite and within the NetSuite space, over 1,000 customers and over 15,000 users are using it globally. So as I mentioned, the tool has a lot of history. It can be, everything is out of the box, and it has won various different awards from, the industry leaders such as Gartners and Forresters of the world. So that's kind of an introduction of what the tool is, what its capabilities are. What I probably will do is I probably will hand it over to Sanjoy, who will be able to show you what the tool can do, and I'll go on mute just in case if you have any questions for me afterwards. Sanjoy, over to you, buddy.
Thank you, Popsy. I'm trying to share my screen. Whole screen. Okay. I hope everyone can see my screen. Thank you, Popsy, for the fantastic introduction. Good morning, everyone. I'm Sanjoy, Solution Principal, NetSuite Planning and Budgeting, helping customers build financial planning solutions in the cloud. My background includes solution consulting, pre-sales, governance, advisory in various financial domains like corporate finance, financial planning, analysis, reporting, risk, financial engineering, and so on. I've also implemented the financial performance management solutions across the globe in the various industry verticals for the past 15 years. So to explain what Popsy has already mentioned is that by nature, ERP or any operational system is equipped to report the historical performance of an organization. And drawing parallel with a particular type of car where you can only view through the rear view mirror or the side view mirror, but you can't see from the front windscreen. You can't see the road ahead. And it is not only extremely difficult to drive such a car, rather it is dangerous, particularly when the terrains are uncertain. And that is exactly the problem we are trying to solve using NetSuite Planning and Budgeting. This solution not only enhances the visibility of the front windscreen, clearly showing you the road ahead, but it also provides a GPS navigation system which indicates your final destination, the time it'll take to reach there, the route overview, and any alternate routes that you might want to take along the way. So before we jump into the solution, I would want to recap the major pain points while using a tool like Excel to manage your planning and budgeting processes. Oftentimes, we see companies having many huge silo Excel workbooks sitting on an isolated laptop or an FTP location with no live connectivity to the ERP. You would then have to manually extract all the financial data and the non-financial data from your operational systems, spending long hours formatting, cleansing, and reconciling the data, and then manually plugging this data with numerous formulas, references, and macros in Excel workbooks, handling errors, handling circular references manually, and finally connecting those Excel models to create a meaningful financial plan, which is then manually uploaded into NetSuite or your ERP systems to report the actual versus budget versus forecast. And ultimately, all of these manual processes are not only time consuming, but they are not very agile. Hence, you're limited to only forecasting once every quarter or twice a year. With that in mind, let us jump to the demonstration. So I will be putting my FP&A, financial planning and analysis hat on. I will be working through a typical financial planning process. So I will start with putting together the revenue forecast, followed by the operational expenses forecast, all of which would lead me to the income statement. Then I will look at forecasting the different components of the balance sheet and see the combined impact of the income statement and the balance sheet in the cash flow. Finally, once we have put together the financial forecast, we will report the figures to the management via dashboards and analysis, all from the same platform. We will also create a simple scenario simulating the COVID-19 economy, where we will change our forecast parameters and analyze the impact on the financial KPIs. So with that, I will log into the NetSuite planning and budgeting system. So this is the landing page of NetSuite planning and budgeting system on the cloud once we have logged in. So let us take a moment and familiarize ourselves with the home screen. So on the right-hand side, I can see the various widgets or applications, which helps to work with the specific areas of financial planning. And I would navigate through these applications as I put together a financial forecast. On the left-hand side, I can see notifications and announcements relevant to the forecasting process, providing useful guidelines and insights, and also important milestone information for task completion relevant to the budgeting and forecasting process. So based on the guidelines, the United States subsidiary as a whole is looking at a 5% reduction in their revenue targets. Given the prevailing economic conditions, and to cushion that impact of revenue reduction on the operating margin, the guidelines also mandates a 10% reduction of overall operational expenses. So knowing the revenue targets, I navigate to the sales forecasting application to create the revenue forecast. So every financial application within the NetSuite planning and budgeting solution consists of a set of input templates, as you can see the service revenue rendering, where I can upload a bunch of parameters, and a set of reports, for example, the services revenue report, where you can validate the outcome of applying those parameters. And everything is set up neatly in workbenches, which provides a very simplified user interface, easy to navigate. So now I will use the services revenue trending template to create the revenue forecast for various service streams, as you can see in the rows, by specific customers and business classes. So let me choose the relevant point of view where I can enter the combinations of my input parameters. So here in the POV, I choose United States as my subsidiary, USD as the functional currency that the sub operates in, which is also the currency of my revenue forecast. I would create the revenue forecast for the customer Abbott Incorporation and for the business class A. So once I apply the point of view, the system will render the template based on the POV selection. So now in the rows, I can see the various service items for this particular customer portfolio, Abbott Incorporation, which will change dynamically as we select a different customer in the point of view. One key thing to highlight here is that these templates, when configured on your environment, would be with segments relevant to your business processes, your customers, your products and service items, your departments, your business calendar, your subsidiaries, and so on. So now explaining the template a bit, on the columns are the time periods. So January through August FY19 are the historical periods, as they are actuals loaded from your NetSuite ERP or from your operational systems via direct integration. What this means is that we can always overlay the close periods of the data in the forecast with the actual information from your operational system. And this process can be easily automated, making the revenue forecasts reconciled and up to date with the latest financial data. September FY19 through December 2020 are the forecasted periods and will be updated based on the different projection methods that I can choose by the individual service items. The different projection methods that are available out of the box are various rolling averages. For example, the 6 months rolling average for October FY19 as an example will average the balances of the immediate prior 6 months, which is April FY19 through to September FY19. Prior year actual, as the name suggests, looks at the balances exactly 12 months prior. For any service item, we can also directly input the forecast by choosing the manual option. Along with the projection method, for every service item, we can also input an adjustment factor as percentages, which can be either an upside or a downside. This adjustment is applied to the numbers calculated based on the particular projection method selected for the particular service item. I can also add new service items in the customer portfolio. For example, I can add a new service item called new project one. For this customer portfolio for Q4 in USD, I will enter the entire budget of $10,000 based on a 4-4-5 split. And as you can see that the system can enter all these numbers based on the split that I've just entered. I can now also manually edit the December figures to bump up the forecasted figures 11,000. And I can save these assumptions, and those new products would be automatically added to my portfolio. So now, based on the CFO's guidelines, I will choose a 6 months rolling average method for all the service items with a 5% downside. I can easily apply all the projection methods by simply dragging the assumptions across all the service items, and I will do the same by entering the 5% downside. Once I select the assumptions for all the service items, I will save these assumptions. What the system does in the background is it will apply these assumptions and calculate the revenue forecast for the customer Abbott Incorporation for the business class A, which for September FY 2019 is $1.5 million. It will also aggregate the forecast across different business classes, which I can easily view by selecting total class in this template, which is $2.1 million, 2.175. This is also the budget for the revenue forecast for the customer Abbott Incorporation. And finally, it will aggregate the information across all business classes, across all customers, to give me my total revenue forecast for the subsidiary United States. As you can see here, it is $6.3 billion. I can also add comments explaining the forecasts. As you can see here, it clearly shows the 6.3 million for my US subsidiary based on 6 months rolling average with 5% downside, which I'll be able to track in the income statement. So all these information automatically gets posted into the income statement where we can easily see the buildup of the service revenue line item, where I can trace these numbers. So now I navigate to the income statement to understand the buildup of the service revenue based on the assumptions to my revenue forecast. So the income statement here shows the breakdown of different types of revenues and expenses to show me the KPIs relevant to my business. And it clearly explains the buildup of my EBITDA, my gross profit margin, my operating margin, right up to the NPAT, the net profit after taxes. These detailed line items are dynamically rolled up into summary levels from the detailed levels, which implies that any changes to my revenue line items automatically builds up my gross profit and my profit margin. And in turn, it builds up my EBITDA based on my operating expenses. And finally, it also builds my net profit after taxes. So it's a completely integrated income statement. And now focusing on the service revenue figures, I can further analyze the breakdown of the 6.3 million, which I've already seen as the revenue forecast for my subsidiary. I can see the breakdown by the individual customers. And once I click on the detailed reports, it clearly shows me the 2.1 million contributed by the customer about incorporation, which I've already seen in my sales forecasting module. The income statement is also represented in graphical format via dashboards. So here it explains the individual areas of revenues, as you can see in the first two grids, as well as the expenses. And it shows the information both in graphical and numerical format. Each specific area can be further analyzed by drilling down into further details. So here I can drill down into the operational expense for T&E to see the further breakdown. I can also change the visualization to enhance my analysis. For example, here I'm changing the pie visualization to a bar visualization. And I can also further analyze the patterns of these expenses over time by drilling into the time horizons. For example, here I've drilled down from a YTD perspective to a month-on-month perspective. So this shows us the ability of changing the drivers of my revenue forecast and how that builds up my income statement block by block, and I can see the impact on the dashboards. Here, I would like to pause for a moment and reflect how easily we can change the assumptions and see the impact on the income statement. Now, let me navigate back to the sales forecast app again and explore other prediction methods. So far, we have built the revenue forecast using a 6 months rolling average with a 5% downside. But the problem with this is that the rolling average removes the seasonality factor from the forecasted projections, whereas capturing seasonality can be a crucial factor for certain service items. So in order to leverage the seasonality pattern in our historical data and factor the seasonality into the revenue forecast, we can use statistical time series methods available out of the box for any data sets where historical data is available. So here I again select the point of view to create the revenue forecast for the customer about incorporations and for business class A. And I would execute predictive planning. So what the system does is, in the background, that is goes back in time to process the pattern of historical data and suggest the algorithm that best fits the pattern for every combination of service item in the customer portfolio. So let's explore the different information that's provided here. So here, the algorithm that best fits the pattern is seasonal additive algorithm. The blue curve here is the prediction, whereas the red curve here is the forecast calculated based on 6 months rolling average with the 5% downside that we just did. It shows the accuracy of the forecast, and it also shows the root mean squared error. It shows the prediction inherent with seasonality. The prediction algorithm also suggests the best case and the worst case scenarios of the growth rates based on the confidence interval that we have chosen as input parameters. And finally, it quantifies and highlights the gap between the predicted growth rate and the growth rate that has been pre-calculated using the 6 months rolling average. Here I can view the prediction for other combination of customer and service items, right? So what I will now do is I will take the prediction for the integration projects and I would layer it into my forecast. It's a very simple process where I just paste the predicted values into the forecast for the integration project service item for About Incorporations. And once I save these assumptions, like before, the revenue forecast is automatically aggregated for all customers, for all business classes, all service items, and posted into the service revenue line item of the income statement, where we can easily see the breakup as we have just shown now. So here I would like to take a pause and reflect how easily we can change the assumptions of the revenue forecast, going down as detailed as individual customers and products, and see the results calculated immediately for all customers, all service items, all business classes, including the impact of the income statement. And at all point in time, as a finance manager or an IT manager, we have the financial intelligence and best-in-class prediction tools available at our fingertips. Now, if we contrast this interface with the forecasting process residing in silo disconnected Excel workbooks, where data gathering and reconciliation would consume most of my time, we can clearly see the value of NetSuite planning and budgeting, which creates reconciled, interconnected, up-to-date, accurate forecasts in real time with just a few, all from a single unified platform in a seamless manner. So next, we forecast the operational expenses, example, the selling, general, and administration expenses. And as per the guidelines, we will need to reduce the operational expenses for the entire US subsidiary by 10%. So we have created the revenue forecasts in a bottom-up fashion by building the assumptions from individual customers, business classes, and service items. In this scenario, we will perform a true top-down forecast of the operational expenses of the US subsidiary by applying a 10% downside to the total operating expenses. And we will see the impact trickling down to the individual departments of the subsidiary and into the individual expense lines within each department. So with that, we will navigate to the operational expense financial application. And in particular, we will here use the OPEX top level adjustment template. The template is already pointing to the US subsidiary with all the expense lines represented in US dollars. So we can explore the different types of the operational expenses by drilling from the summary level to the detail levels. We can also explore the departments where we have incurred those expenses. So here, to do a true top-down adjustment for the total operation expenses of US subsidiary for FY19, I would highlight the cell that I would need to do an adjustment to, and I will perform something which is called a grid spread. So here, I would adjust the existing 11.5 million of expenses with a downside of 10%, which is 10.4 million. And the method here I would choose is proportional spread, which will push down these adjusted expenses of 10.4 million proportionately based on the weightages of all the different operation expenses that has been calculated across all the departments so far. So once I hit save, the system performs the true top-down adjustment of the 10.4 millions of expenses across all the departments and pushing the values down to all the expense line items for FY19. And it posts the impact to the income statement. So as an example here, I can see that based on the 10.4 million of expenses that I have adjusted across all the departments, the sales department incurred 3.2 millions of expenses. Now let us navigate back to the income statement and see how the buildup of the operational expenses have contributed to my income statement. So for here, within the income statement, if I look at the total operating expense lines, I can see that lo and behold, the 10.4 million has already been pushed for FY19. And if I want to analyze the breakdown by the individual departments, I can easily do that by selecting the detailed analysis report, where I can easily see that the 3.227 million of expenses incurred by the sales department, it shows the buildup of the 10.4 million. So we saw how easily using NetSuite planning and budgeting, we can perform a true top-down forecast with just a few clicks, creating a reconciled and up-to-date operation expense forecast, and also posting the impact into the P&L seamlessly and efficiently, all from a single platform, unlike Excel. Next, we move on to forecasting the balance sheet. And combined with the income statement forecast, we will see how the NetSuite planning and budgeting solution builds the cash flow forecast. It also illustrates the key financial planning framework in action, a three-way linked financial planning forecast consisting of the income statement, balance sheet, and the cash flow. We will forecast the working capitals, in particular trades receivables. So let me navigate to that application. So we will be creating the forecast for the US subsidiary with all the currency nominations in US dollar. January through August FY19, as mentioned before, is my historical information. September FY19 through to December 2020 is my forecasted months. And based on CFO's guidelines, in order to cushion the impact of the 5% reduction in revenue, we will reduce the days sales outstanding driver by 1 day, which means that we will collect the cash from our customers a day faster. So here is a perfect example where we see the P&L, the top half of this template, driving the balance sheet, the bottom half of this template. We have already seen the total sales pre-calculated from our revenue forecast. Historically, the day sales outstanding varies anywhere between 7.36 days to 8.11 days. So based on CFO's guidance, we will make the day sales outstanding from 12 days to 6. So let me change that in my forecasting. And I can drag drop this assumption of my DSO across all my forecasted months. Once we save the assumptions, the system does the following in the background. First, it recalculates the closing trade debtors balance based on the DSO and the total sales that we have just entered. So you can see here is that based on the new day sales outstanding driver from 12 to 6, it has changed the closing trade debtors balance from 6.9 million to 4.2 million. It then relays the impact to the balance sheet. So here, the way it does it is that it calculates the outstanding debtor collections. So it is essentially the money that we need to collect from our customers in order to attain the closing trade receivables balance of 4.2 million in September. It then rolls forward the closing trade receivables balance of the period to the opening trade receivables balance of the next period. So here you can see that in the balance sheet section, the September closing balances of 4.2 million is being rolled forward to the October opening balance of 4.2 million. It posts the resulting movement in the balance sheet. So the change of the DSO to 6 days have resulted in the net movement for trade receivables to $59,000, which is posted into the balance sheet, as we will see. It further posts this movement into the operating section on the cash flow. Finally, the system will plug the cash inflow outflow into the balance sheet, making the balance sheet balance. So now let us quickly trace these numbers in the balance sheet and the cash flow, which will show the integrated framework of P&L, balance sheet, and cash flow. So now if I navigate to the balance sheet, I can see that for my accounts receivable, for my trade receivables, I can see that for my trade receivables, the 59,000 of movement within the month has already been posted. And this 59,000 is reflected in my cash flow as I look into my cash flow here. So the cash flow here is built based on indirect method, which means that an increase in receivables is a drain on cash, as a result of which it is shown as a negative. It then dynamically calculates the operating section with the investing and the financing section to show the net cash movement for the period, which is 27 million, along with the opening and the closing balances of the cash within the cash flow. And this plug is finally posted into the balance sheet, which makes the balance sheet balance, as you can see here. Finally, in order to aggregate and roll forward all the balance sheet items, I can see that the $4.2 million is posted as my closing balance, which makes the balance sheet balance. Also to note that the net profit after taxes from the income statement automatically gets posted into the retained earnings of the balance sheet, which again links the P&L with the balance sheet. Also, the cash flow is shown in dashboards to show the net inflow or outflow of the cash in a graphical manner, which clearly shows us which operations of our business we need to optimize in order to enhance our cash projections. So to recap, what we have seen so far is that by changing the day sales outstanding driver for the US subsidiary, we can see the impact on balance sheet and cash flow seamlessly. And using the Netsuite planning and budgeting framework, we can create a fully reconciled three-way linked financial forecast of income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow seamlessly and efficiently with just a few clicks, again, from the single platform. Now that we have created the financial forecast, it is time to report the findings to the management. NetSuite Planning and Budgeting solution has numerous reports and dashboards out of the box, which can be rendered in the browser as well as on the Microsoft Office tool sets like Excel, Word, and PowerPoint. It is truly a cloud solution. We have already seen how the NetSuite Planning and Budgeting platform allows you to build dashboards based on which you can do detailed analysis of your data. But what it also has is traffic lighted variance analysis reports, which helps to compare the forecasts that we have created against the actual. So here, the green line signifies the YTD variances, which are within the tolerance threshold of 20%, versus the amber, which are beyond the threshold of 20%. And all these clear instructions can be provided to interpret the coloring schemes. I can also add comments to explain my variance analysis. And I can further drill down on individual line items to see the detailed variances. For example, I can look at the detailed variances of my service revenue items by individual customers. All these analyses are at your fingertips in order for you to do the analysis for the various segments that you need to analyze in order to have complete visibility of your business. And these reports are highly configurable. now that we have created a financial forecast and we have generated a detailed analysis for the management, using NetSuite planning and budgeting, we will take this set of financial forecast data and we will tweak the assumptions reflective of a particular scenario, and we can see the immediate impact on our margins. So we will use the scenario manager application to create the new scenario. And we can then tweak the assumptions within the relevant applications to regenerate the new KPIs. So here we would be using the financial forecast data set that we have already created. So these are aggregated figures which are supported by underlying assumptions, which we can easily view using the detailed reports. So we will take this forecast data and we have created so far, and we will simulate a financial scenario reflective of COVID-19 economy. So let's quickly do that. So I'm creating a new scenario, which I'll name as COVID-19, and we will tweak the assumptions in this particular scenario. So now let's navigate back to the sales forecasting application once the scenario is created. By the way, we can also validate that all the assumptions have been copied over in this new scenario, right? So now let's navigate back to our sales forecasting application. I will point the scenario to COVID-19, which I can easily look up. And here we are trying to tweak the assumptions for the customer Abbott Incorporation for Class A. So we would want to simulate a decrease of 50% reduction of revenue compared to last year. So in this scenario, we would choose prior year actuals. We will drag it across all the service items. We would want to have a 50% reduction. And again, we can apply the adjustment factor across all the service items. And like before, we will save our assumptions here. So once we save our assumptions, as we have seen before, this will calculate the revenue forecast for the Abbott Incorporations and will aggregate the information across the subsidiary and show the immediate impact in my scenario manager. So once I navigate back to the scenario manager, I can see the immediate impact of my services revenue, which has reduced from 132 million to 129 million based on the changes to the assumptions. So thus, using NetSuite planning and budgeting, we can simulate many scenarios. And within each scenario, we can tweak the assumption at a very detailed level by customers, by service item, by business classes and departments, and so on. And we can compare the financial positions, like our margins, easily across these two scenarios. So with this, I would just want to recap is by using the NetSuite planning and budgeting solution, we can seamlessly and efficiently build a three-way linked P&L balance sheet and forecast by working through the individual components, the revenue, the OPEX, the working capitals, using a combination of bottom-up and top-down approach. By applying the best-in-class financial intelligence prediction tool to predict the future, leveraging historical information from NetSuite and other ERP via direct integration. And we are able to simulate multiple scenarios of the financial forecasts, all from within a single platform by just using a few clicks without maintaining complex Excel sheets, and thereby preventing any risk of human error or intervention. So looking at the pain points that we discussed at the outset related to the executing of forecasts using Excel sheets, we do not need to maintain those complex workbooks. It saves us a lot of time in creating automated, reconciled, accurate, and interconnected forecasts. And most importantly, it allows us to focus on optimizing our business drivers, which, as the strategic advisors to the management, should be our true responsibility. It also reduces the complexity of managing the processes as everything is driven from the single unified platform, fostering collaboration and making us more accountable for the forecasts. And what this means is that the NSPB solution gives you more efficiency, which would allow you to forecast, plan, and budget more frequently. Finishing off where we started with the analogy of the car, the NetSuite planning and budgeting solution gives you absolute clarity of the road ahead, provide alternate routes, whilst also providing a rear view mirror, or in other words, the historical performance as well as the forecasting performance, all from within a single unified platform, giving you complete visibility of your business so that you can make better informed decisions. And with that, I would like to thank you and want to hand it back to Popsy.
Thank you, Sanjoy. That was very insightful demo that you've just done. Stefani, do you want to take it over?
Thank you, Popsy, and thank you, Sanjoy. Jadi Bapak Ibu, untuk seperti yang dijelaskan oleh Popsy, dan tadi kita juga sudah melihat demo dari Sanjoy untuk aplikasi BCS sendiri dari Oracle Netsuite, dan sekarang mungkin kita lanjut ke sesi business case yang akan dibawakan oleh Pak Weli Kamal sebelum nanti kita masuk ke Q&A. Jadi kalau buat Bapak Ibu yang sudah memiliki pertanyaan dan mau diskusi, mungkin disimpan dulu untuk sesi Q&A ya. Untuk Pak Weli. Halo, Weli.
Ya, Stefani, thank you.
Jadi sekarang langsung saya transfer aja ke Pak Weli untuk sesi sharing business case ya.
Ya, thank you Stefani. Pagi semuanya, Bapak Ibu. Perkenalkan, saya Weli Kamal, IPM Consultant dari PT Metrodata Electronics. Pada sesi saya hari ini, saya akan coba membawakan sebuah case dari sebuah LNG company, yaitu industri hilir dari oil and gas, di mana mengubah gas alam cair menjadi bentuk liquid dengan orientasi pasar ke wilayah ekspor Asia Timur. Oke, beberapa challenge yang dihadapi ketika sebelum implementasi dari sistem PBCS ini, antara lain, yang pertama, akibat perubahan ekonomi yang sedemikian cepatnya, company butuh untuk menyesuaikan dengan beberapa indikator keuangan berdasarkan asumsi-asumsi bisnis yang berubah secara cepat. Dalam hal ini industri minyak itu adalah harga minyak mentah. Mungkin di bisnis sektor lain, komoditi yang lain bisa dalam bentuk misalkan dari sektor batu bara bisa mungkin harga batu bara, atau di sektor keuangan bisa saja mungkin dari sisi bunga BI rate atau JBOR atau LIBOR. Oke, yang kedua adalah akibat kondisi ekonomi yang fluktuatif, kebutuhan top manajemen untuk sebuah analisis, what if analisis, beberapa skenario bisnis akibat perubahan dari kondisi ekonomi memerlukan waktu yang tidak sedikit untuk di-deliver. Apalagi masih menggunakan spreadsheet di mana diperlukan waktu untuk update dari satu Excel ke Excel yang lain, di mana kadang kita menemukan adanya circular reference ataupun error. Dari various analisis ini, kita dapat membuat beberapa skenario, di mana skenario yang bisa kita buat antara lain dari skenario moderate sampai ke level optimistic. Yang ketiga adalah tentunya setelah penyusunan budget, diperlukan sebuah media untuk memonitor dari budget yang sudah disetujui oleh manajemen. Dalam hal ini mungkin bentuknya dalam bentuk antara budget versus actual ataupun persentase dari penggunaan anggaran itu sendiri. Nah, saat ini sebelum implementasi dari PBCS ini, customer kesulitan untuk menyajikan informasi tersebut karena beberapa data dihasilkan oleh sistem yang berbeda-beda. Tentunya masih menggunakan Excel tentunya, jadi butuh waktu untuk mengolah data itu menjadi satu kesatuan. Nah, beberapa benefit yang diperoleh oleh customer ketika implementasi PBCS yang pertama adalah pastinya kemampuan untuk melihat impact dari perubahan ekonomi. Dalam hal ini perubahan harga minyak secara cepat melalui indikator-indikator keuangan dan dalam bentuk gross margin, operating margin, atau net income margin. Yang kedua, tentunya kemampuan untuk membuat beberapa skenario bisnis dari fluktuasi kondisi ekonomi. Tentunya sangat relevan dengan kondisi saat ini tentunya Bapak Ibu, dari kondisi pandemik sekarang ini di mana saat ini di industri oil and gas harga minyak mentah tersebut bergerak sangat fluktuatif, bahkan beberapa saat yang lalu pernah menyentuh ke teritori negatif. Yang ketiga adalah ketika budget yang kita susun itu sudah menjadi budget yang di-approve oleh manajemen, tentunya budget tersebut harus kita kontrol. Kita kontrol ketika tahun actual, setiap bulan ketika accounting user sudah selesai melakukan accounting closing, tentunya dibutuhkan suatu komparasi data antara budget dan actual. Yang keempat adalah manajemen report. Manajemen report ini disajikan secara cepat dari mingguan menjadi hanya beberapa jam setelah accounting closing, report untuk manajemen itu tersedia. Report tersebut antara lain berupa variance analysis, berupa budget utilization, dan beberapa contoh contoh report-report yang lain yang akan saya tunjukkan di sesi selanjutnya. Untuk demo skenario yang saya akan bawakan ini mungkin hanya sebagian kecil dari proses budget secara keseluruhan. Mungkin kalau full cycle budget preparation, mungkin dari revenue, dari penyusunan OPEX, sampai penyusunan CAPEX hingga menjadi sebuah financial statement. Untuk sesi kali ini, saya mungkin hanya mengambil sedikit dari keseluruhan proses penyusunan anggaran tersebut. Area yang akan saya coba bawakan di sini lebih ke arah simulasi, what if analysis, atau dengan nama lainnya yang kadang digunakan user adalah sensitivity analysis. Oke, model pertama skenario saya yaitu saya menggunakan sebuah variabel yang sangat menentukan bisnis sebuah perusahaan, dalam hal ini perusahaan oil and gas, tentu saja harga minyak, atau mungkin di model bisnis Bapak Ibu semuanya mungkin berbeda, mungkin bisa dengan menggunakan di industri keuangan mungkin menggunakan Jaber atau Labor sebagai sebuah variabel yang menentukan indikator keuangan secara keseluruhan. Saya coba contohkan dari penyusunan anggaran tersebut dengan menggunakan asumsi harga minyak, yaitu kita coba dengan harga 55 US dollar per billion barrel. Ini adalah asumsi harga minyak. Kita coba input di sini. Dan kemudian kita coba run, save. Ketika save dijalankan, sistem otomatis akan melakukan kalkulasi semua akun kalkulasikan ulang untuk melihat impact dari perubahan harga minyak tersebut. Perubahan harga minyak ini tidak hanya akan merubah dari sisi revenue, tentu dari sisi beberapa expense yang lain yang berbentuk variable cost tentu akan terpengaruh juga. Oke, ketika sistem sudah berhasil selesai menghitung, kita dapat dengan mudah melihat indikator keuangan. Indikator keuangan itu dalam bentuk yang pertama adalah profit and loss tentunya. Tentunya dari version awal saya dengan menggunakan harga patokan minyak 55%, saya dapat mengenerate sebuah figur laporan keuangan. Saya bisa dapat angka revenue, angka gross profit sampai ke angka net profit after tax. Perlu saya garis bawahi di sini Bapak Ibu, di sini angka minus di sini berarti menunjukkan adalah saldo normal akun tersebut. Jadi ketika net profit after tax minus menunjukkan itu adalah profit. Nah, di samping itu kita juga dapat melihat beberapa indikator keuangan tersebut dalam bentuk dashboard, dalam bentuk chart. Kita dapat lihat angka dari gross profit margin tersebut dari chart, dan chart ini dapat kita drill down lebih dalam lagi untuk melihat data yang disajikan per kuartal. Dan data kuartal dapat kita drill lagi ke dalam bentuk bulanan. Oke, selain berimplikasi pada profit and loss, tentunya perubahan harga minyak tersebut akan mengakibatkan cash flow dari perusahaan. Cash from operating pasti akan berubah. Di sini sistem juga akan mengkalkulasikan cash flow dengan asumsi harga minyak 55 billion per barrel. Kita dapat menentukan angka cash from operating activity dengan asumsi financing activity dan investing activity tersebut tidak bergerak. Untuk proses yang kedua adalah kita coba merekalkulate postur keuangan tadi dengan skenario yang baru. Oke, ketika tadi saya menggunakan asumsi harga minyak 55, saya dapat membuat versi lain selain harga minyak 55. Caranya dengan saya mengcopy dulu angka figur keuangan pertama saya ke dalam draft. Oke, kemudian kita dapat menentukan variabel yang kedua untuk menjadi patokan komparasi. Saya contohkan di sini 40 billion per barrel. Kita save lagi. Ketika save dijalankan, otomatis sistem menghitung di belakang layar semua akun yang berhubungan dengan parameter ini. Oke, ketika selesai dijalankan, kita mendapatkan dua figur laporan keuangan dengan asumsi yang berbeda. Satu dengan menggunakan asumsi 40 harga minyaknya dan satu lagi di 55. Kita dapat melihat di sini komparasinya gross profit yang dihasilkan berapa, gross profit marginnya kita juga peroleh, sampai net income marginnya berapa. Untuk versi profit and loss detailnya itu kita dapat melihatnya di PL comparison monthly. Dari year total ini kita dapat drill menjadi kuartal, dan dari kuartal kita dapat drill sampai ke level bulan. Jadi semudah itu Bapak Ibu untuk mendrill data dari high level menjadi lowest level. Selain itu, kita juga dapat melihat komparasi antara dua versi tadi di dalam cash flow. Kita dapat melihat dua figur tadi menghasilkan cash from operating activity yang berbeda. Kita juga dapat melihat itu di dalam yang lebih detail adalah saya dapat menunjukkan terakhir adalah figur dari balance sheet-nya tersebut. Balance sheet-nya tersebut adalah seperti yang Sanjoy tadi utarakan, itu dari profit and loss otomatis akan naik ke return earning. Yang ketiga prosesnya adalah variance reporting. Variance reporting akan saya tunjukkan dalam bentuk komparasi actual versus budget, di mana ketika saldo dari ERP dari aplikasi transaksional Bapak Ibu sudah berhasil di closing, data tersebut akan diintegrasikan dengan sistem PBCS ini, di mana sangat mudah untuk mendapatkan report komparasinya antara actual versus budget, di mana di sini dapat kita lihat ketika angka budget kita sudah peroleh dari angka budget approved, tentunya angka actual juga dapat kita peroleh dari ERP, dari integrasi antara ERP dengan PBCS ini. Sehingga kita dapat memperoleh report variance dan variance dalam bentuk persentase. Selain itu juga kita juga dapat mengenerate financial report analysis KPI dalam bentuk budget utilisasi. Jadi di sini kita dapat melihat per masing-masing subheading account. Di sini antara budget versus actualnya berapa, utilisasinya. Nah, di sini juga kita PBCS juga memiliki fitur validasi, di mana ketika angka budget utilisasi mencapai angka tertentu, kita dapat memberikan sebuah alert. Dalam hal ini saya contohkan ketika angka budget utilisasi sudah di atas angka 50%, otomatis sistem akan memberikan tanda dengan warna orange, sehingga menjadi warning buat Bapak Ibu. Kemudian ini ada contoh dari budget availability. Budget availability ini menyajikan uh, menyajikan komparasi antara budget before transfer sampai budget after transfer. Bedanya di sini adalah di sini ada informasi open PO. Open PO itu adalah komitmen yang sudah dilakukan tapi belum terrecord transaksinya di natural account. Jadi di sini kita dapat melihat utilisasi budget setelah ditambahkan dengan open PO per masing-masing GL account itu dapat kita peroleh dengan cepat. Karena semua angka open PO, angka load, angka transfer itu semuanya akan terintegrasi dari sistem ERP Bapak Ibu. Contoh budget monitoring yang terakhir yang dapat saya tunjukkan adalah komparasi antara per masing-masing GL setiap bulan beserta variansnya. Perlu saya garis bawahi, report-report ini mungkin ada yang relevan dengan Bapak Ibu, ada yang tidak relevan. Tapi PBCS ini membuka ruang kepada Bapak Ibu untuk membuat custom report di luar dari yang saya tunjukkan ini dengan fleksibilitas sesuai dengan template Bapak Ibu. Oke, yang terakhir adalah report actual versus budget dari beberapa akun yang di-highlight. Contoh di sini material cost per masing-masing cost center per direktorat setiap bulannya. Ada angka actual, angka budgetnya, serta angka variansnya. Setiap bulan dapat kita peroleh. Di samping itu report-report ini dapat disajikan pula di dalam bentuk Excel dengan cara kita dapat membukanya di dalam Excel, kita spreadsheet export. Jadi angka-angka yang ditampilkan di Excel ini direct integration langsung Excel menarik data dari sistem. Tampilan yang ditampilkan di Excel dan di web itu merupakan satu kesatuan. Data yang akan ditampilkan sama. Perbedaannya ketika saya tampilkan di Excel, biasanya dari sisi user akan dapat membuat beberapa analisis. Misalkan saya mau insert row tertentu, itu dapat dilakukan dengan mudah. Bapak Ibu mau menganalisis secara lebih detail dengan menggunakan pendekatan Excel Bapak Ibu, dengan menggunakan formula Excel Bapak Ibu, itu dapat dilakukan secara gampang. Oke, dari saya, sekian dari demo dari saya. Mungkin dari Stefani dapat dilanjutkan dengan Q&A.
Oke, sekarang kita masuk ke sesi tanya jawab, masuk ke Q&A session. Jadinya buat bapak ibu yang memiliki pertanyaan, kita open for discussion untuk sesi ini. Mungkin kita bisa kalau dari kolom chat ini ada pertanyaan dari Bapak Bambang Prasetya. Halo Bapak Bambang.
Halo Mbak.
Ya, oke, mungkin saya bacakan ya Pak ya untuk pertanyaan dari Bapak. Terima kasih nih udah tanya. Jadi pertanyaannya untuk Bapak Weli dari Pak Bambang, apakah untuk melakukan customize tersebut dapat dilakukan mandiri atau programmer yang memiliki keahlian khusus? Ya, bagaimana? Apa Bapak mau nanya lagi Pak? Sekalian nih, mumpung ada Pak Welinya.
Ya, itu seperti yang saya chatting ya, pertanyaannya itu ya, kira-kira apakah membutuhkan keahlian khusus atau untuk develop atau untuk customize itu susah enggak sih gitu loh, atau hanya sekedar seperti Excel semacam itu gitu.
Sebenarnya saya coba jawab ya, Bapak. Sebenarnya untuk customize aplikasi ini lebih mudah, Pak. Saya pernah implementasi dengan user accounting bisa merubah rumus tersebut dengan gampang, Pak. Karena selain dengan menggunakan media scripting, saya juga dapat membuat formula berdasarkan dari Excel, Pak. Ada medianya, ada fiturnya, Pak. Jadi untuk report, untuk kalkulasi itu menurut saya itu sangat mudah dilakukan untuk user di accounting tanpa bantuan dari IT tentunya.
Oke Pak Willy, sebagai contoh seperti yang tadi didemokan itu, gitu, kira-kira itu butuh berapa lama itu Pak Willy untuk itu?
Contoh report atau
Yang tadi
flow proses, Pak?
Enggak, yang tadi Pak Willy kan tadi demo ya, untuk apa, dari chart account, kemudian pengelompokan reporting sehingga bisa di drill down gitu ya, kemudian di apa, per bulan gitu. Kira-kira berapa lama sih untuk itu, atau mudah gitu seperti di Excel gitu, semacam itu gitu?
Ini dapat dilakukan di Excel, Pak. Saya mungkin bisa contohkan sebuah analisis saya lakukan. Saya membuat sebuah report itu di Excel, Pak. Coba saya contohkan.
Oke, sambil menunggu Bapak Weli mempersiapkan jawaban untuk Bapak Bambang, kami juga menyediakan feedback form nih Pak, Ibu, untuk kegiatan webinar pada hari ini. Ada di kolom chat, boleh diisi ya Bapak Ibu feedback formnya. Feedback formnya dapat ditemukan di kolom chatting di meeting chat kita, sudah dikirimkan oleh rekan saya, Susanti.
Ada lagi Bapak Ibu yang ditanyakan sembari saya mempersiapkan sebuah demo untuk penyajian report. Oke Pak, ini saya coba contohkan sebuah report ad hoc, di mana kita coba membuat sebuah komparasi antara budget versus actual, Pak. Contoh di sini misalkan kita coba komparasi antara budget 2000 dengan budget 2019. Saya contohkan di sini. Kita dengan mudah kita dapat buatkan di sebelahnya. FY19 kita retrieve. Nah, semudah itu untuk membuat komparasi antara sebuah value dengan value yang lainnya. Di samping itu fitur ini juga dapat memungkinkan Bapak Ibu untuk melakukan free formula di Excel seperti yang Bapak Ibu lakukan di Excel Bapak Ibu dengan data yang terkoneksi langsung dengan database. Kemudian saya juga bisa, misalkan saya mau keluarkan ini dalam year total, saya juga dapat langsung ganti year total, dan saya mau dapat angka untuk detailnya, level bottomnya, saya dengan mudah cukup klik, data tersebut disajikan sampai Januari sampai Desember, Bapak.
Oke.
Untuk mungkin untuk implementasinya, untuk whole prosesnya implementasi sistem ini kurang lebih itu 3 sampai 4 bulan, Bapak. Termasuk di dalamnya adalah penyiapan budget sampai ke latest estimate hingga kita buatkan monitoringnya, Pak. Jadi itu saling berhubungan.
Oke Pak Willy, makasih Pak Willy update-nya.
Ya, terima kasih Pak.
Thank you Pak Bambang untuk pertanyaannya. Untuk Bapak Ibu yang lain, kalau ada pertanyaan, boleh ditanyakan sambil menunggu. Dari room meeting chat itu ada feedback form. Jadi buat Bapak Ibu juga bisa sambil mengisi feedback formnya ya. Oke, sepertinya udah nggak ada pertanyaan lagi dari Bapak Ibu ya. Jadi mungkin kita tutup aja untuk kegiatan webinar pada hari ini. Jadi demikianlah kegiatan webinar TBCS kita pada hari ini. Terima kasih untuk Bapak Ibu atas waktu yang sudah diluangkan. Jika ada pertanyaan lebih lanjut dari Bapak Ibu, bisa langsung mengirimkan email pertanyaan ke kami. Ada saya dan Ivana. Alamat emailnya sudah saya share di grup chat. Jadinya bisa langsung hubungi alamat kontak kami yang ada tertera di undangan.
So that's all of our PBCS webinar activities today. If there's no further question, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your time. And if you have any further question, you can contact us again at our contact listed on this webinar invitation.
Thank you semuanya. Terima kasih untuk pembicara kita. Mr. Foxy, thank you. Mr. Sanjoy, thank you. Fareli, thank you.
Thank you semuanya.
Thank you all, and
Thank you Sanjoy.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you everyone.
Terima kasih.
Terima kasih. Bye-bye.